variance of the town of Ayer, zoning board of appeals, Wednesday, April 17th, 6 p.m. Hybrid meeting agenda. This meeting, hearing of the zoning board of appeals will be held in person at the location provided on this notice. Members of the public are welcome to attend this in-person meeting. Please note that while an option for remote attendance and our participation via Zoom is being provided as a courtesy to the public, the meeting/hearing will not be suspended or terminated if technical problems interrupt the virtual broadcast, unless otherwise required by law. Members of the public with particular intent in a specific item on this agenda should make plans for in-person versus virtual attendance accordingly. Meeting will be live on Zoom. Public may access the meeting by joining Zoom meeting ID 857-9728-7177 or by calling 312-626-6799. For additional information about remote participation, please contact Samantha Benoit, Administrative Coordinator at zba@ayer.mass.us or 978-772-8220, extension 114, prior to the meeting. First item on the agenda is the approval of the agenda.
I make a motion to approve the agenda of Wednesday, April 17th, 2024.
Second.
You have a second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
You have to do roll call.
Yes.
Jessica Gino, aye.
Mike Gibbons, aye.
Ron DeFilippo, aye.
John Ellis, aye.
Dan Goodwin, aye. All right, the agenda's been approved. First item on the agenda, variance extension request 201 to 205 West Main Street. Building height, are we gonna do them both at once or are we gonna do them separately?
There's two.
We have to do them separately, don't we?
Yep.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. First item on the agenda is the variance extension request 201 205 West Main Street, building height. You open, Mr. Attorney Gibbons?
Yes, good evening, board members. My name is Tom Gibbons, and I represent DMG Investment LLC regarding 201 to 205 West Main Street. So the request for the extension, the presentation is the same, so I'd ask that I make the presentation and you consider that in both, or open them both at the same time and have it heard, whatever the board's pleasure is. But again, I don't think we'll need to go through the argument twice. So we're seeking a 6-month extension for the two variances that this board granted on April 19th of 2023. The variances were for building height and lot width, and copies of the recorded variances were submitted with the application. Mass General Law 48, Section 10, Paragraph 3 provides that, quote, "The permit granting authority, in its discretion, and upon written application by the grantee of such rights, may extend the time for exercise of such rights for a period not to exceed 6 months. As you know, the project that this relates to required site plan approval, and we filed site plan approval, had many meetings, and one of the issues that the planning board had some difficulty with was our request for a reduction in unit size. So ultimately, we withdrew that application without prejudice. At Springtown meeting Monday night, there is a warrant article to change the bylaw, and if it passes, it'll change the unit size requirement in certain circumstances. And if that passes, we believe that the unit size issue will not be an insurmountable issue if we were to reapply for a site plan. So because of the timing of the bylaw change in the town meeting schedule, we're asking for the 6-month extension to these variances.
Okay.
I see considerable pushback from department heads, economic development, town planner, zoning, the building department, public works,
So Sam,
fire department. I mean,
Sam, can I just ask a clarifying question? So
please.
I don't recall a time when we've been asked to grant an extension where we've gone through this process again.
Okay.
Could be. But in truth, this felt to me like we were rehearing the original variance applications. Again, I don't recall a time in my time on the board we've denied an extension request, nor done this amount of research with input all the way up to town council. So that's just my opening thought here is, you know, it feels like we're rehearing these applications when I don't think that's the intent tonight. But that's just my opening thought, Sam.
All right, well, we discussed it at length when we first went through the whole process. I don't disagree with that. And we did have some pushback at the time, and I was surprised when I saw the compilation of everything that came back on this. And you're absolutely correct. We shouldn't be going through this process again. Our basis right now is whether or not we'll allow the extension of it, because for whatever reason. I read the town council's letter. So there's going to end up with 2 of these on the table. So I don't remember, how many extensions have we done? I only remember 1 or 2.
I don't think we've done one, Sam. They get 1 year from the time we issued, and I think we issued initially on April 19th.
Yeah, if I may, on this one, there hasn't been any extensions. This is the first extension request.
No. We're talking about other.
Oh, I see.
Other hearings. I
There's-
don't think we.
Sam,
Maybe
there's people
one or
in the
two.
audience who would like to speak. I don't know if you can see them.
No.
Okay.
I can't.
Sam, if I could, Charlie would like to offer a
All
comment.
right, go, Charlie. Go ahead. Go. Sorry, I can't see you from here.
Here we go. Okay. So I think the whole crux of this lies in the initial approval for the variance. If you read town council's letter to the town, it's a 3-prong approach that you need to prove a variance, and I don't believe that was done on the first hearing. And I've taken the time and gone through each of the prongs, and it's I'll do them in part, but owing to circumstances relating to soil shape or topography, you have to prove that. A lot is considered as having an unusual or unique shape if it substantially differs from other lots in the immediate neighborhood and within the zoning district. This lot does not meet that criteria. The shape in justifying a variance is generally considered to be an odd shape, such as a pork chop lot. The shape does not meet that criteria. Odd, unusual, or unique shape does not include deficiencies in depth, width, and area frontage so as to justify a variance. This lot's large enough to do a number of different scenarios for building a project on, so it doesn't meet that criteria. Soil conditions and topography must be unusual, odd, or unique. They're not. They're the same as everyone in that zone. And B, a literal enforcement of the provision of the bylaw would involve substantial hardship, financial or otherwise, to the petitioner. First one, hardship entitling a landowner to a variance is usually present when the landowner cannot reasonably make use of the property for the purpose or the manner allowed by zoning. It can easily be used for the criteria in our zoning as 3 stories and 192 feet wide, so there's no financial hardship there, as the lot can be used for its intended use and purpose. 2, hardship generally means due to soil conditions, shape, and topography. The development of the property consistent with the zoning bylaw is prohibited. It can be used by the zoning bylaw, so it doesn't meet that criteria. Hardship must be based on a circumstance directly affecting the property, not on circumstances creating a personal hardship for the landowner. There's no hardship affecting the property as it can be used for its current zoning, so it doesn't meet the criteria for a variance there. And 4, hardship cannot be self-created by the landowner. They would be creating their own hardship if this variance is granted. And we still haven't got to the parking issue, although we talked about this, the Attorney Gibbons talked about the 750 size issue may go away. There's still a huge parking issue that goes with that. And finally...
The planning board has that, they took it right out of our hands. Charlie.
Right.
I can appreciate your listing, but case in point is the variances have been granted.
Right, but...
If I'm understanding everybody correctly, what you're all saying is we shouldn't have done it? Is that what I'm hearing?
That's in my opinion, it's my opinion that the applicant does not meet any of the criteria outlined in Chapter 48, Section 10 to qualify for a variance in the first place, and therefore the extension should not be granted. If you read Attorney Questel, who was present at the meeting on Zoom, she could probably expand on that further as to why it doesn't need to be granted, even though it was granted the first time.
Sam, could I ask a question?
Please, Jess.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I would, since we do have town council here, going to Mike's earlier question, this feels like it is rehearing the initial granting of the variances as opposed to considering an actual extension. So I'd love to hear more from town council on that, and how we're making that distinction. And
yeah, we right or wrong, we granted the variances, period. There was no question about that, we did that. We discussed it, we debated it, and we finished it. These points did not come about during that discussion. So now what's on the table before us is an extension for the variance that we granted. And I'm hearing that we shouldn't have done it to begin with. So if our town council would be so kind as to elaborate on this, I'd be tickled.
Sure, I'm here, Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Please.
Thank you, Amy. Thank you, Amy Questel, Town Council. So your decisions that you issued two separate decisions for two separate variances. Those decisions, unfortunately, don't lay out these three prongs that, proving that these three prongs were met. It is undeniable that the courts in Massachusetts have held that all three prongs have to be met for a variance to be granted. Variances are to be granted sparingly, and once granted, they are supposed to be acted upon swiftly. I cited to the pertinent case law in my memo that I distributed, or hopefully was distributed to you guys. And so when you're looking for an extension of a variance, it is this board, it's incumbent upon this board to prove that the elements are all still met. And so, meaning that there is still a soil shape or topography problem. There is still a hardship that's created by that soil shape and topography, and that it doesn't substantially, granting of the variance does not substantially derogate from the intent of the bylaw. So, yes, you are actually going back and you're looking at the variance again. You're looking at the three prongs of the variance here, because your decision is devoid of any analysis of the prongs that are required under 48 Section 10. You need to do that tonight. You need to say, okay, the soil shape and topography is still, there's still something unusual about the soil shape and topography of this lot, not other lots in the area, only this lot. And it can't be that it's too small or too narrow or anything like that. It has to be, a pork chop lot, or there has to be wetlands cutting through only this lot, an isolated vegetated wetland, something like that. Or there has to be substantial ledge in a certain portion of the lot that creates it, so therefore, building can only be in one corner of the lot. And then there has to be that hardship, and then there has to be, by granting this variance, would there be a substantial derogation from the zoning bylaw? Now, I can tell you that variances are very hard to obtain. They are very hard to obtain if challenged by the courts. They are almost always, a granting of a variance is almost always overturned. But without these three prongs being met, they should not even be granted. So where we are here is they were granted. Now they're looking for a 6-month extension. They have told us why they're looking for a 6-month extension that has to do with permitting and a combination of permitting and an upcoming bylaw change. That doesn't have anything to do with the three prongs. So in my opinion, this board does have to go through the three prongs and decide if an extension should be granted. The other thing that I did want to point out is that no one is entitled to a variance. Ergo, no one is entitled to an extension of a variance. So it is up to this board to make sure that the elements are met.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
May I, Mr. Chairman?
Very interesting.
Mr. Chairman, may I respond?
Who's that? Mr.
Attorney
Gibbons?
Tom Gibbons.
Go ahead, sir.
Yes, thank you. So I'd like to hand out for the board copies of Chapter 48, Section 10, and some past decisions of this board. So, and I'm gonna say all this with all due respect, and I mean it. Charlie and I have been friends and colleagues for 28 years. I've been practicing law for 28 years, and with all due respect to Attorney Questle as a fellow attorney. However, I'm perplexed by her opinion. So if we look at Chapter 48, Section 10, there is 3 paragraphs to that statute. And if we look at the first one, it says, the permit, and I've highlighted some of this wording, the permit granting authority shall have the power, after a hearing, and I'm going to skip to the highlights, to grant a variance, where such permit granting authority specifically finds that owing to circumstances related to soil condition, shape, or topography of such land or structures, and especially affecting such land or structures, and I won't read the whole thing, but it's all of the criteria for this board to grant a variance. Now, I respect Charlie, and I read his comments, and Charlie, I think you had submitted that prior to the other variance, but it's this board that makes that decision, and it did in fact make the decision to approve it. So this board found that we met those requirements. Now, Attorney Questle says, well, but you didn't lay out the findings in your decision. Well, if you look at the copies, I've given you 4 decisions of this board, and they date from 1980, 1997, 2001, 2023, and you have the 2 variances that were granted in this case. And I could have found dozens more. I just got Attorney Questle's opinion earlier today, and I went online and I pulled those up. If you look at those decisions, the format is basically the same as the format of our decisions, right? They don't lay out the findings of fact. So it's not unusual. Your decision is not unusual. Now, Attorney Questle, I think you would agree with me that when a board makes a decision, there's a 20-day appeal period. I've seen planning boards in other towns sue the ZBA. Maybe Charlie, as the building inspector, would have had a right to appeal. Certainly, as a resident of the town, if he had standing, he would have had a right to appeal. But the appeal period has expired. So all of this talk is about, basically, should we grant a new variance? That's not what we're asking for today. Or laying out claims for an appeal. The appeal period is passed. So I say that with all due respect. Now, most importantly, because...
If I could address that quickly.
Please.
I do agree that there is a 20-day appeal period. However, what perhaps he's going to get to, which I haven't heard yet, is there is no entitlement to an extension, and I did cite 2 cases.
So with all due respect, I don't think I'm presenting to this board that I'm entitled or my client's entitled to an extension. Been before this board many years over my 28-year career, was on the planning board in the town of Ayer. So I am not coming forward saying we're entitled to this. However, if you go to paragraph 3 of chapter 48, section 10, and that's on the 2nd page. So let's read that. If the rights authorized by a variance are not exercised within 1 year of the date of the grant of such variance, such rights shall lapse. Provided, however, that the permit granting authority in its discretion, and upon written application by the grantee of such rights, may extend the time for exercise of such rights for a period not to exceed 6 months. So, with all due respect, Attorney Questle, I don't know under what statutory construction you can say that we have to rehear all of the elements, because, and everybody on this board, except for the newest one who I'm not familiar with, has been on this board for many, many years. And when you read that statute, it's not a very complicated one when it comes to the extension. There's 2 requirements. We request an extension in writing before the expiration of the variance, and then you exercise your discretion. Now, if the legislature wanted it to say that if we're coming in for an extension, that we have to redo all those things, and Attorney Questle, I think you would agree with me, they wouldn't have needed paragraph 3. What they would have done is in paragraph 1, they would have said, the permit granting authority shall have the power after public hearing to grant a variance or to grant an extension, where such permit granting authority specifically finds those elements. So
I would point to the Lopes case, which says that, the courts have held that variances should be acted upon swiftly, and that they're intended in part to curb the widespread abuse of variance granting power. So you shouldn't be just granting an extension. You have to make sure that the variance that you're extending is still applicable.
with all due respect, where does it say that in 9A, in 40A, Section 10? Because it doesn't.
It's in case law that cites to Section 10.
You're citing case law that would have been a reason for a board maybe to deny the variance. That's not what we have here.
No, the Lopes case has to do with an extension. No, it's and the other case that has to do with the extension is the Hunter Brook case has to do with the extension. So there's no question that the extension, in fact, the statute even said, I can't remember the words that you used just a few minutes ago, but I think it said in the discretion of the Zoning Board of Appeals to grant the extension. So it just goes without saying that you can't grant an extension without justification for that extension. Now, if you're extending a variance that has no justification, it shouldn't be extended.
Well, so, and I certainly don't want to alienate the board, and Attorney Questle, you and I could have a discussion about this for hours, I'm sure. But the fact is that it's the duty of the board. The town council, the building inspector, with all due respect, doesn't get to usurp the Zoning Board of Appeals authority. It's within the Board of Appeals authority to do this. As I said, I've been practicing for 28 years. I have gotten many extensions over that 28 years, and I'm certain some from the town of Ayer. I can't recall it right now, but I'm certain that I have. And what the boards have always said is, why are you before us? Is there good cause, right? So they're looking at, why are you here? Well, so we could have, someone might come in and say, I'm here because, I got that decision, and then I really didn't do anything, and now I realize I want to continue the development, and so I need an extension. That's probably not good cause. It wouldn't be in mine, and it would be up to the board's discretion. Their discretion is there. What I'm saying to you is that the reason we're asking for the extension is because there's a warrant article at town meeting Monday. Monday, there's a meeting. And if that passes, it will have an impact on this decision. Now, again, we may have to come back for a variance in the future, and I'm sure Charlie and everybody else will be ready with their arguments. And Charlie, I think you did submit most of those comments previously.
No, I didn't. I went after the amount, the financial feasibility for the school system never being studied. Their recommendation on how many people would be living in this state above or below what the state allows. So they didn't use any of those numbers.
Okay, so
I didn't do any of this.
But
oh, go ahead.
Well, so how many bites at the apple do you get? In our state, you have 20 days to appeal if you're not happy with the decision. So this board has made that decision. I think it was the right decision. Other people can disagree. But what we're asking for now is a 6-month extension. And I believe it's absolutely within your discretion. But it shouldn't be within your discretion to say, hey, you haven't convinced us tonight that it's because of lot shape, soil condition, or topography. We met, I think, more than once, and I can't remember right off the bat, but we had nights of presentations. I get this opinion tonight, or this morning. Is it reasonable to expect that we're going to gather up our whole team, come back in and present in maybe 20 minutes that we have, nights and nights worth of presentation? It really, to me, is unfathomable that you could read this requirement like that. It's beyond reproach. So what I'd say is I'd ask the board to exercise their discretion. Now, you might disagree with me that because there's a warrant article Monday that would affect our application, you might disagree that that's good cause. I would hope that you wouldn't. I think it's absolutely good cause. But I don't think rehearing the whole thing is what is intended in the statute, nor clearly the clear reading of the language doesn't indicate that.
All right, thank you. Do we have any other public input?
Sam, Jess has a question, I think.
I'm sorry, Jess, go ahead.
Just a question, if we were to not grant the extensions, because we initially did grant the variances, that wouldn't be the same as denying an application and then they have to wait 2 or 3 years to reapply? Would that be the truth?
No.
Okay.
Correct. No, it would not.
Okay. Thank you.
Do we have any public input? Anybody with their hand up? Anybody in the room?
Nope.
Doesn't look like it, Sam.
Silence. All right.
Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Okay, guys, what do we think? Mike, I think I got an idea what it's on your mind.
You do, Sam, but just to add on to what I said earlier, I want to reiterate that in truth, this feels like we're rehearing 2 variances we've already granted.
Yes.
I know that town council has said that it's essentially not, but it feels that way. Additionally, I wasn't aware that the applicants received the memo from town council today. So I have to agree that they could not have had time to prepare for what is essentially a rehearing of variances we granted last year. And
So, can I ask a question about that, sir?
Just let me finish.
Sure.
And I'd have to gander that if you took a look at every decision we've issued since we've issued this decision, these 2 decisions, they look nearly identical, albeit the parcel information, property information, and the variance or special permit granted is different. I understand, and I know, just to wrap this up, Sam, we've spent a lot of time in the last 6 months, rewriting our rules and regulations document. And I do think it's important that we, going forward, stick to this. Unfortunately, extensions weren't addressed in it because I did take a look. Every decision we've made, again, I think would have to look exactly like the one that we're looking at tonight. We've granted a number of extensions through the years, including for, we did it for the auto body place by Shop and Save there, or I think it was a donut shop at the time.
Yeah, it was a coffee shop.
So,
that's right. Yep.
Again, I wasn't prepared to rehear these applications tonight. I did bring them, the applications from last April with me, but, if I wasn't prepared, I don't know how our applicants could be. So if...
Well, here's an interesting question, though. That being said, when does it expire? When does the variance expire? On the 19th?
Yes.
Yes.
All right, why are we here today? What's today's date?
17th.
2 days before expiration. Really? We're waiting till 2 days before we even address an extension. I think that's pretty poor planning.
May I respond?
Sure, go right ahead.
You meet once a month, I believe.
Yep.
And I filed on March 28th. And again, the statute requires that you file it before the expiration date. I filed it on March 28th. Here we are, April 17th. I don't think that's, I with all due respect, I don't think it's outrageous, but certainly it's within the time period set forth in the statute, which is the only rules and regulations I can go by.
Well, I understand that, but by the same token, I don't want to hear that we only got a notice yesterday and we didn't have time to go through it.
But they didn't. They did just get it today.
Amy Questle has a.
Yes, ma'am?
So my question is, why is there such a huge presentation necessary? It's either soil shape or topography, so what is it? The lot, has anything changed in the past year? So what is the unusual? Is it the soil? Is it the shape? Is it the topography? And did that change? What has changed in the past year? Did anything? And the answer could be nothing. It still is an unusual soil shape or topography. There's no need tonight to reevaluate the proposal. What you're reevaluating is the variance, and your decision, quite honestly, your decision needs to address you need to have findings in your decision, and then you need to have, a reasoning for your decision. So, and that's something I'm more than willing to work with the board on going into the future on, establishing certain findings for each, whether it be a special permit, whether it be a variance. So I don't think that by an extension, the board has to reevaluate the entire project. The project is the project. It's staying the same. It's the variance that, why is there a height variance necessary? What are the soil shape and topography that create the need for a height variance? And without that height variance, what is the hardship created? And does that substantially derogate from the zoning bylaw? So that's just what I was trying to get across earlier, that we're not looking at a whole new evaluation with plans of the proposal and all this stuff. It's just, yes, as we discussed a year ago, the soils somehow require a height variance. I mean, height variances are very hard. They're probably one of the most difficult to come by, because what is creating the need for the additional height? A lot of times you'll see a setback variance necessary because there's an isolated wetland in one corner of the property that pushes the entire development to, into a setback. Attorney Gibbons, claims that he's gotten numerous variances, and that's great. I have boards that do not grant variances ever, because the case law is clear that it's extremely hard to grant a variance. So, I do see, sometimes I'll see setback variances, but with a height variance, it's more of, what is the soil shape and topography that's creating a height variance, I guess.
Mr. Chairman, if I may respond?
Who?
Tom Gibbons.
Mr. Gibbons, go ahead.
Attorney Questle, did you watch the videos of the meetings? Okay, so then I think you probably know the answer, but this board has already made that determination. So we have to abide by the regulations. In this case, it's a state statute. So I'm just simply asking the question, where in section 10 of 40A does it say you have to do that? And that's the board's decision, and we can go back and forth. And again, Attorney Questle and I can argue back and forth, but it's the board's decision. But I think, having been on this board for so many years and read so many, whether it's a town regulation or a statute, there's nothing in paragraph 3 that says, in order to grant an extension, you have to find that. Now, I get that there's been a lot of work, and the board's working on changes to their policies and procedures. But if you look at those 4 decisions, you look at these 2 decisions, and I could probably pull up dozens of others. That's the format that you've used. And if someone wanted to file an appeal because they said, hey, the board didn't spell out in their decisions, the case law says you have to do this, you have 20 days to do it. I mean, the town isn't going to come back at those 4 other people that got variances and say, oh, the board didn't spell out the findings, and so, we're going to take your variance away. the decision is final. That's why we have courts. That's why we have statutes that are clear. So it really comes down to this. It really,
It's not being taken, the variance is not being taken away. The variance is good for 1 year. That was.
With all due respect, I think if-
Question. It's not being taken away.
Sam?
Yes,
Yeah. Okay, on the one hand, I think if you look at some of our old decisions, yeah, we didn't do findings. This is similar.
no, we didn't, that's right.
But I will acknowledge we are getting better, especially thanks to Sam Benoit's work with us, and we're now tightening up some weaknesses we've had.
Sure.
Second, I think there's a lot more information presented in some of the town comments than we had last time, especially from the fire department and the DPW.
What we had at the original meeting, we didn't have the concepts or the detail that they got when they went to the planning board. So there in fact lies a bit of a difference.
Yeah, so we do have more information with these comments, but what I asked before was, if we deny the extension, does that mean that they can't do anything for 2 or 3 years? No, it doesn't take that right away. They can immediately reapply. I'm still troubled, and we were all troubled back a year ago about the parking issue. And the DPW superintendent made the comment in his comment to this hearing that the height issue, the height variance is directly related to the parking problem. I would be happier myself with having this go back before the planning board, regardless of what happens on the size of the units at Springtown meeting. They still have to resolve the issue of parking with the planning board. And if that can be successfully resolved one way or another, then I'd be happy to revisit new variance applications on height and width. And so I think that's where I'm now thinking. There's no harm in us. There's a lot of information provided that suggests we should reconsider, that we might have made some errors. I will still stand by some of the reasoning I had for supporting it a year ago, including advice from the town planner at that time, and also observations made by members of another board that the form-based code was appearing to be too restrictive. And there were some public good arguments, but I can see that, at least on the financial hardship prong, we're tightening up, so I don't think that should be used against us. But I think there's no harm. They can reapply for the variances, but I'd like to see the parking issue resolved.
That's not us,
I know,
that.
I know.
She does.
Yeah. So I'd rather not, I'd rather like to see the variances reconsidered with that already dealt with.
Thank you. Pauline's had her hand up for a bit. Pauline, you got a question?
Yes, Mr. Chair, and thank you for recognizing me. I'm sorry I didn't ask this during the public input, but you've discussed it further since then. Mr. Gibbons' letter to the board specifically addresses potential changes to the zoning bylaw on Monday, April 22nd. I've read these articles. I'm looking at one of them right now, and my guess is Mr. Gibbons is referring, Mr. Thomas Gibbons is referring to Article 28. But I would like him to at least address that, and then I would like to suggest, he's asking for a 6-month extension. We don't know what's going to happen at town meeting, but town meeting traditionally denies every zoning bylaw. So your current approval may exist by right, since you've already done it. No, the appeal period has expired. So I just want to throw that out there. If Tom will please explain the particular article on town meeting that he's referring to, and then thoughts from you or any other members of the board. Thank you.
Thank you, Pauline. I think I know where she was headed with that. Attorney Gibbons, it's about square footage, isn't it?
Sure, and I'll be happy to respond. So it is about the square footage of the unit sizes. So that's one aspect. That's the big thing for us and why we withdrew our site plan approval. But again, I don't want to beat a dead horse here, but the fact is that the fire department had 5 concerns. They're all site plan review issues. The DPW had concern about the parking. Now, the parking is a site plan issue. Now, they say it's partly caused by the height of the building, but the original variance for the elements for a variance did not say, well, how does it affect parking? So, you know, the ZBA has its role, planning board has its role, and we
Well,
always...
Wait a minute, excuse me. When you first brought them to it, there were 3 variances. Parking was one of them, and that's when Mr. Diskin stood up and pointed out that the parking belonged to the planning board and therefore took it out of our purview.
Well, right, but...
Correct?
Yes, we withdrew the variance request for parking from this board, but again, so parking has, when you boil it down as a ZBA member and you look at the legal requirements, parking has no impact on this. I'm not saying that parking's not an issue. It's an issue for site plan approval. It's an issue for the planning board. So I respectfully say that if you're concerned about parking as a board member, that should not come into play on whether you grant an extension here. So, you know, again, to go around and around, but Ms. Giugino, if you know, you say there's no harm in having us come back.
Right.
Now,
Charlie just...
if I can just finish though, Mr. Chairman, there is harm. There's great harm.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
There is harm. There's great harm. These projects cost a lot of money to permit. Now, that's not your concern. I get it. But let's take this area of town. We passed the bylaw that Alan had put through, and it's passed. This is the first applicant that has come this far. And I can tell you that it's cost a lot of money and a lot of time. Not saying that that's your concern, but there is harm. There is harm by saying, well, just come back and redo it. You know the team that we brought here, each of those meetings. That's not cheap. Now, in the grand scheme of things, not this project in particular, but we have to understand that we want our towns to have housing that is affordable, not affordable in the sense of restricted, but affordable to people that are on the police department, on the fire department, and work for the town. When you make it so difficult and so costly, it has an impact on the cost. So that's more of a soapbox speech, but there is harm. The statute provides what the extension, within your discretion, what the elements are. It's not a rehearing of the whole matter. And, you know, we may find that we can't get through the planning board in 6 months. So we may be back before you anyway. And then everybody's going to have their opportunity to input again and to appeal if you choose to issue it again. But that's the process.
We have the opportunity tonight for our input because it said we may grant.
That's right,
So
within your
not
discretion.
Like we're shut out of this process tonight.
Right, and what I would ask is if you are going to make a decision, that because it is within your discretion, nobody can make you make that decision, not me, not town council, not Charlie Schultz, but I would ask that, you know, there be at least a brief explanation as why you feel that it shouldn't be granted. And I
said that yet.
No, I know that, but I'm just saying that hopefully it's not because of lot shape, soil condition, topography, because that's not what the law requires. Not you know.
Okay.
Yep, thank you. Mr. Schultz.
If I could one last time. So just for Jess, it's not only is it a 25% higher at 4 stories instead of 3, it is, if I remember correctly, 262 or 264 feet wider than 192. So it's 33% longer and then 25% higher with the 33%. So that is substantially different than the bylaw that the economic developer had passed for this form-based code. And it was voted by 172 or 74 people unanimously at town meeting for these parameters of 3 stories and 192, because that's what form-based code is all about. 4 stories downtown, work your way out, smaller buildings on the outskirt.
Yeah.
It's supposed to, as our economic developer said, paint a picture of what the town wants the town to look like. By going 4 stories and 25% higher and 33% wider, that is substantially different than what 172 or 174 people passed. And furthermore, there, it does take a lot to put a team together. It's expensive, but people are in business. You take risks. I used to have my own business. They lost a lot of money. Sometimes they made money. That's not the town's problem.
And with all due respect, I said that's not why I was bringing it
Right?
up.
No, I'm just giving my position on this. It's not, town's not in business. That property is still there. If they don't want to develop it, someone else can come in and develop it, and I don't believe that there's been a hardship shown, and that is what the cause is to grant the variance.
Okay, but we've covered that.
Right. I'm just saying
We got
that.
Charlie, thank you, John.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, I think we're about done with public input. We're gonna discuss it amongst ourselves.
Sam, just one more. Mr. Diskin has a comment, I think.
Where is he?
He's sitting in the back, trying to hide.
I'm trying to watch the proceedings and listen carefully before I say something wrong. So there was a reference to the fact that it could go back to the planning board, but as you probably know, if you don't know, they withdrew without prejudice at the planning board. So they have not
Yes,
come back.
Attorney Gibbons said that.
Okay, sir, you said? Okay. I thought there was a misunderstanding because Mr. Eugenio kept saying they could go back to the planning board a couple of times, but they didn't go back to the planning board because they withdrew without prejudice.
Right,
So-
but they could go back.
They could go back, but they won't go back without the variances being granted. If the variances elapse, they have nothing to go back to the planning board on. So there's a point in order of that basically what's gonna happen tonight, and my concern is that this board granted the variances initially, despite whatever objections might have existed at the time. I don't know personally what has changed in 12 months. I'm not necessarily saying I'm for or against the proposal. I'm just saying I don't know what's changed in the eyes before this board that's different than a year ago when you granted it. So I think the extension should be granted based on the sheer fact that this applicant hasn't done anything different except apply for an extension. An extension should be granted pretty much without all this education that we've got tonight. Had we not had a specialist in the room with us from town council and other people, I tend to think that the extension may have been granted without any question. I'm just making a speculation here.
So can I just ask
Maybe not.
can I ask a question of
Are
clarification?
you done, Mr. Diskin?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you,
I'm
Ken.
asking a question of him. Ken, get back here.
Oh. You should dig out.
Yeah.
Oh,
no,
okay.
just the
He's not
question
running
is,
this
so just, because it's like sometimes we run into this, the cart before the horse or the horse before the cart issue in terms of coordinating different boards and permitting. So you're saying that without the variances, there's no site plan review for considering other issues like parking?
Well, the drawings they turned in that show 4 stories and show the numbers calculated based on that building size and that lot size. And there was, I believe, an issue at the beginning about the variance and the fact that there is wetlands on,
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
There's wetlands, there's a floodplain issue, there's a number of different criteria on the lot itself, which may or may not exist on adjoining lots. The wetland cut, it could, but the point is that there were conditions. So those conditions drove the site plan and the building height drove the parking count. So those drawings are no good. If the variance goes away, those 4-story buildings change to whatever they come back at or nothing. So they can't just say, we're gonna come back with that same building because it won't be approved.
Okay, it's a very confusing dance of
It's a big
permitting.
project, it takes a
Yeah.
lot of thought, and it takes a lot of work, so, thank you. Anything else? Yes? No?
John, what
Well,
do you think?
I think that this has no path forward.
Sorry?
I don't think this has a path forward. So we're talking about, you talk about reducing the size of the units, and that's what, 25% of the units are going to be reduced? Because those are the affordable housing units?
Yeah, so I don't recall the percentage exactly,
Well,
but
I thought the percentage of affordable was 25% in your proposals.
Marilyn was mentioning this earlier. I thought it was like 20,
24
21 to
units.
25 units.
24.
Okay, so those are the only ones that are going to actually change in size, because only the affordable housing units can be reduced in size.
If the bylaw passes, you mean? If the warrant article passes, or?
Well, even going forward, because that's the way, I guess that's the way the mass law is. If it has to be affordable housing.
Well, so,
In order to reduce the size of the size of the dwelling unit, it has to be affordable, because we were told everything new has to maintain the current 750 or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And that can't change unless it's affordable. So that means the only ones that are going to be affected by the town meeting are the affordable units. So anyway, getting beyond that, the reduction of the size of the units will allow the reduction of the footprint of the building, and it would not require a height variance.
I think the plans submitted were based on the...
That's as submitted, but now that the plans are going to change, because now there's going to be smaller units.
No, I think the plans were with the smaller units, weren't they?
Not the 500, they were 700 for the...
I can clarify that if you want. I was
The
involved in it.
plans were the smaller units, John, when they went into it. That's why, I think that's why the planning board kicked it back.
well, yeah, with all due respect, I think this is unfair to the applicant to...
The idea of the idea of what they're doing is to reduce the size, and we wouldn't have, they couldn't have approved it the way it was with the larger units. That's why they had to go to 4 stories. But if they reduced it was, someone in here said when they reduce the size of the units, it will allow them to go forward, and they won't require a height.
That's
I don't think that's accurate. I think that's incorrect.
I can clarify that if you want, if you'd like, Mr. Chair. With their submission, they had not taken into account the town of Ayer's bylaw that it was 750 square feet per unit. So when they came in with their submission, they had some under like 500 and 600. So
Right.
in order to keep 4 stories, they need this inclusionary bylaw to pass to shrink the square footage.
Secondly, at the current footprint, the fire department says they do not have the access they need, whereas when it was presented to us before, Drew Gavin had said that they had met with the fire department and they were fine with it.
But
Well, at this point, they're not fine with it.
for clarity though, John, that's something that I think will be taken up during site plan. They've
That's
pulled,
correct,
they've
Mike.
pulled that
That's absolutely
application.
The parking, the room size, the fire department access, that's all in site plan review. What we are determining is whether or not we're going to allow the over height variance stand or the,
Lot width.
what?
The lot width, extent, variance?
Is that the other one?
Yes.
I'm drawing a blank, I'm sorry, yes. That's what we're looking at, we reviewed this package and agreed to allow them to go over the height, for whatever reason. Now, the fact of the matter is, regardless of whether or not we don't like the parking, we don't like the room size, we don't like the fire truck can't get around there, that's site plan review. Our business right now is to determine whether or not we're going to allow the variance that we granted a year ago to stand as is for another 6 months. Plain and simple. There's no difference. If nothing has changed, is the variance still acceptable, regardless of why they asked for it? I mean, they could say, well, we're waiting to hit the lottery. I don't know. we suspect it's because of the town meeting. They're gonna change the room size. But that still does not change the building height whatsoever.
We did not have this letter from the fire department where they say that they don't have access and they were concerned about the weight of the trucks on the lot and all this other stuff. And
But it wouldn't have mattered to us anyway, because that was not our concern.
And-
Our concern was the building height.
And frankly, that wasn't presented at the time that we made the decision.
that's right, we did not have this information because they told us that they had cleared everything with the fire department.
Well,
And so this is new.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, so this is the danger of trying to, make these decisions based on a comment from a board, because we did have, the fire chief was at the meeting. We talked about different changes. We talked about different access, having a side access for the fire department. But you have to do that in a process. We were doing that in the process, and we will continue to do it in the process. I don't know if some of those comments were previously dealt with, but we can't make that decision here because the fire chief made a comment. It's a decision
Right.
that will be dealt with. And if we,
I get that.
and so I'm just asking that we apply the criteria that's required for this decision, and that's not dismissing any other concerns or future permitting that we have to go through. It's what this board is,
We are-
statutorily required to
We
do.
are in deliberation right now, sir.
Thank you.
Ron?
Well.
What? Just no? Is that it? No?
No. I think this is our chance to in light of all these new observations, is to correct a bad decision. Charlie's brought out all these things that should have been entered into the decision. The last meeting on this process was a 100% Zoom meeting, and the meeting was terrible. It was a meeting of attrition where all we heard was all the pro people, practically drowning us out and telling us how wonderful this project was. This is our chance to stop this thing. I mean, the applicant should have taken their money and run. They should have put the shovel in the ground before this damn thing expired.
We couldn't have done that, though, Mr. DiFilippo, because we don't have site plan approval. There's absolutely no way we could have put a shovel in the ground.
All right. Well, anyway.
And I know that it was a 4-to-1 vote, and you had voted against it, so I do understand your position.
No. Okay.
Thank you. We looked this over, we went with the information we had a year ago. Town council tells us that we did it wrong. We didn't follow the guidelines from the law. We didn't do the 3-prong attack, whatever you want to call it. In any case, is there any more board comments?
I have two final questions for town council, Sam. When we granted the variance, we needed a supermajority. What is the vote needed to pass an extension?
It would be the same.
Okay.
4 out of 5.
Okay. And is there a 20-day appeal to an extension?
Most likely, I would say no, because they're not really entitled to an extension.
Okay. That's all.
All right. That being said, I recommend we take a vote on this.
You haven't said what you think about this.
Yeah.
How do you feel about this?
I think that, my personal opinion, we looked this over, we talked about it, we discussed it, and we felt comfortable with what we did when we did it. Now, the comments that I read coming back from the fire department, from the building department, I understand all that, but that doesn't cloud my issue. Those are all site plan review issues. We were brought forth to grant a variance for a building height. And what I read is that we did it wrong. we didn't meet the requirements. We made the decision, but we didn't meet the requirements of the law in order to do that. So I'm kind of tossed whether we should start over, grant a variance. I mean, the continuation of the variance is strictly economics. They're holding off to see if they get the room size reduced at the town meeting Monday night. I don't know what's going to happen if they don't get it reduced. Then what happens? But in any case, in my opinion, I think we might have hosed it up. I'm not sure. We might have not done due diligence. We might not have done what we should have done when we originally heard this plan. So I'm not in favor of it.
So, Sam, truthfully, I don't see what's changed since we granted this last April.
Nothing, really. That's correct.
I also, every decision this board's made, we're not infallible, but I stand by every decision we've made.
Yep.
100%. I haven't agreed with all of them, but I stand by every single one, you know, whether it was unanimous or not. For so many reasons. Number one, timing. We have 2 days until this thing expires. I don't feel the applicants could have been adequately prepared for tonight's meeting. They did not expect to rehear this, and I didn't either. I brought the application, but I shouldn't need it. We've never done this for an extension. In 11 years on this board, not once. I don't think it's right, and if we're not in favor of granting for 6 months, I think we ought to grant for an extension for something, because at the very least, the applicants, like I said, there's no way they could have been prepared for this tonight. I mean, like we've all said, but when they were here in April, there was a team of 20 people. You know, they had engineers and Attorney Gibbons and everybody else here to present. They've got, you know, the gentleman from
Mr. Hamill, yeah.
Mr. Hamill here tonight, but I'm certain he wasn't prepared to give us the presentation they gave us last year. You know, I'm in favor of granting the 6-month extension, you know, if not for past practice, because to me, nothing's changed. I agree with the decision we made last year, and I'd make it again. And that's all, that's my final thought on it.
You don't think we did anything wrong?
I don't. I don't. I agree with the decisions it wasn't like it was a fly-by-night 20-minute meeting. We had more people on that Zoom. No, I'm not, I don't mean to sound like I'm attacking you, Sam. I'm just, my opinion of it is we had a number of people on that call who disagreed with it. You know, it's not as if it was a one-sided argument. It wasn't a quick meeting, and we've spent an hour and 5 minutes on this tonight. It took a long time last year. The decision we made, I think, is still valid, and I still agree with it.
What do you think about the letter from town council?
I understand it, but again, unless...
Does it tell you that we did it wrong?
Well, Sam, if that's the case, we've done every decision I think that this board has issued in the 11 years that I've been on here wrong, and that may be the case. And like Jess said, going forward, thankfully we now have Sam and Attorney Quessel to help us through that process.
Right.
But again, my opinion here is nothing has changed. I thought this was a good idea last April, and I think it's a good idea now.
All right, thanks.
Yeah.
Want to make a motion?
There's one more comment.
Yes, Jess.
Oh, there's a comment from the public.
We're not taking comments. We closed that 20 minutes ago.
Okay.
Anybody else have any?
You want to make a motion, Michael? Go ahead.
All right. I make a motion to grant a variance extension request for 201 to 205 West Main Street for building height.
Somebody second?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. Roll count, please.
Being swayed by Mr. Gibbons, I'm going to vote yes. Aye.
Michael Gibbons, aye.
Ron DeFilippo, no.
John Ellis, aye.
Sam Goodwin, aye.
Thank you very much.
So the next item, Sam, is the other variance extension.
The other variance, that was,
Width.
what was that? I'm sorry.
Lot width.
Width.
What, width?
Yeah. I think we extended it up from 192.
I must be getting old, I don't remember that. All right, lot width, you're right, okay. Rather than go through the entire, yeah, there it is. Rather than go through this entire process again, Attorney Gibbons, do you have anything different to add to this?
Yeah, I think just a couple house issues is closing the, well, it's not a public hearing, so I don't think it needs to be closed. So no, I mean, you know, my presentation would be the same on lot width. The issue is the same when it comes to an extension. So I would respectfully request that the extension be granted on lot width.
Thank you. Any debate? Any, excuse me. Comments from the public?
Seeing none in the room, Sam.
Okay, thank you. Board debate?
Nothing.
Anybody?
No.
That's straightforward.
All right, that should be straightforward then.
I
Make another motion.
make a motion to grant the variance extension request for 201 to 205 West Main Street for lot width.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. Roll call vote, please.
Jessica Gino, aye.
Mike Gibbons, aye.
Ron DeFilippo, no.
John Ellis, aye.
Sam Goodwin, aye.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your time and consideration.
Thank you, sir. All right, I make a motion to close. No, it was not a public hearing, was it? That's right. It was not a public hearing.
Mr. Chairman, you don't need me anymore.
Who asked? Oh,
I did.
oh, no. Thank you very much for your input. I
Thank you.
appreciate it.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Good night. Next item on the agenda, public hearing, application for special permit, Kevin Harden, 27 Grove Street. All right. Yes, so much for the 6 p.m. meeting. All right, public hearing notice, Ayer ZBA will conduct a hybrid public hearing at 7:07 p.m. on Wednesday, April 17, 2024 at Town Hall, 1 Main Street, regarding an application submitted by Kevin Harden for a property located at 27 Grove Street, Ayer, Mass. Applicant is seeking a special permit pursuant to Ayer zoning bylaws, section 7.6.c.b, reconstruction after a catastrophe, to allow for construction of a new building to not be located within the original footprint. For Zoom or call-in information, please contact Ayer ZBA. Contact ZBA at ayer.ma.us or 978-772-8220, extension 114. Is Mr. Harden in the?
Yes, I'm Kevin Harden.
You have the floor, sir.
Good evening to the board members, abutters, and everybody concerned. Like I said, my name is Kevin Harden, and on November 12th, 2023, I had a catastrophic fire that destroyed the house at 27 Grove Street. I purchased the house in 1984. It's been 40 years. The house was built about 150 years ago. And I'm in front of you tonight to ask permission to make changes to the existing footprint and location of the structure on the lot. I think rebuilding the structure in the existing location is a hazard for first responders having free and easy access around the building. And if the wind had been blowing in another direction that night, it's most likely the house next door would have been lost as well. So I'd like to replace the existing three-family structure, and I'm proposing to construct a new two-family structure on the existing lot located at 27 Grove Street. I'm requesting permission to reconfigure and relocate the new structure on the lot. By doing so, it will improve the sprawling footprint to a more modern, compact footprint that will improve setbacks and provide an aesthetic appearance while fitting in with the current structures in the neighborhood. It will protect the existing vegetation on the west and the south side of the house by eliminating the need to put a new foundation in the current footprint, because the current foundation is most likely not going to meet existing code requirements. The new structure will have an assessed value which will increase tax base for the town, and it will reduce current traffic and parking demands for the house, as well as town services. The new footprint will have a positive effect on the current topography of the location, because the new structure would be on the flat section of the lot, avoiding destruction of the vegetation. The new footprint would improve some of the non-conforming setbacks of this lot. It will alleviate the concerns of the west side neighbor while adhering to current setback requirements on the east side neighbor. The new proposed should accommodate parking under the structure, which will decrease the on-site parking requirement on the lot. So I'm for you to ask for your approval, and thank you for your time. I have a number of letters that were sent in. Samantha said she has quite a few, so I think you might already have the ones I have. I have pictures of the existing lot and site plan. I think everybody has that for their review, but I have copies here if they're needed.
And I received one additional letter of support.
Yeah,
about an hour.
came in today.
Yeah, well, and I received one about an hour before the meeting as well, so.
Okay.
If you want to read it, it's.
Okay, guys, what do you think?
Input?
I have a question for Mr. Harden. Sam?
Marilyn.
Go ahead.
Oh. Mr. Harden, how many parking spaces are you going to do? I know you don't have really a definitive plan of what you're replacing for your new building, but what's your plans?
So it's a concept plan. The engineering hasn't been done because there is no approval yet. But my thought would be that we'd have parking under the structure itself, which would get some of the parking off of the lot and parking in front of it as well.
Do you know what the requirement is for parking for a two-family house?
I do not.
You need 2 spaces per unit? Does your plans allow for that?
So if there's 2 that are under, there's room for 2 in front. It would be, one of the drawings I've got shows a proposal that would appear that way, as well as this one. This one is Pearl Street structure. This one happens to be in Westford. This one is Marshall Street. So these are ideas that I have of how the structure could be designed. So it would take an architecture drawing to determine exactly how it can be laid out.
Was the one that was three-family, wasn't it?
It's three-family prior.
Going from 3 to 2. So that's improvement on the parking.
Yeah, and people have parked to the side of the building as well in the past, so.
I'm not, is that allowed with the setback, to park in the setback?
Well, that's the other thing is there's some variance issues here. Are those not to be considered because it's making it less non-conforming and it is a catastrophe rebuild?
I thought a catastrophic rebuild was in kind.
It is. That's why he needs a permit, because he's changing the footprint.
No, that's not in kind, John. In kind is he's putting the house back on the same footprint.
Right.
Yeah.
But that's why the special permit.
Yeah,
Right.
that's why he's here.
Yes, I understand it, but
Okay.
I'm just trying to clarify that,
Okay.
you know,
I know that, but even
Right.
where he's putting it now, it's not where it was, and now there's issues with the boundaries because now we have zoning laws for setbacks and stuff, and those aren't going to be met.
then he has to have variances for the.
Well, that's my
setback
question.
Issues. Yes, you're correct, I think.
So one of my questions then was, if you're making it less non-conforming, what are the setbacks, or what are the issues that remain non-conforming?
Well, the setbacks are still non-conforming in parts of the lot. They're just a lot better setbacks. I mean, if you take a look at this existing drawing, one corner of the structure right now on the northwest corner is 1 foot from the lot line. The proposed will have a setback of 27 feet at least, maybe a tad more, 30 feet setback. The east side of the house has quite a bit of setback existing, and the setback requirement is 15 feet, and the new structure is placed at 16 feet, so it has an additional foot of clearance. So that meets setback on that end. It'll meet setback on the other end. The spot that it doesn't meet is this corner that jogs in. We're still close on that spot, but we're a lot further on these others by moving it down and condensing it.
So I guess my question is, if we grant a permit, he'll still have to come back for variances, or how does that work from here?
I don't think so. So I think with reconstruction after catastrophe, he does not need to. So the section of the bylaw that they're citing in the application, 7.6CB, it says, in the event that the proposed reconstruction would cause the structure to A, exceed the volume or area of the original non-conforming structure, or B, be located other than on the original footprint, a special permit shall be required. So I don't think.
Correct. But now it's a new construction, and it's not on the same footprint, and it's not within the variances that are required. So I don't know if, because we're making it less non-conforming, I don't know if they'll give him a building permit or if he has to get variances. I guess that's my question.
I think you would.
Did Charlie already leave?
Yeah.
Yeah, Charlie, so this originally started as a building permit that was rejected. And Charlie wrote the letter with the building permit saying this is what you need in order to rebuild. So Charlie has already seen.
That's true, he did.
And I have a copy of Charlie's letter here.
But he didn't address the variances. He just said, because it's a different footprint.
So it was in his review of the building permit in which these things were seen that he determined it was only a special permit needed. He's the one who determines.
Okay, well then he's still going to, if we approve, he has to go back for a building permit.
Yeah, no matter what.
Okay, and then he will tell you if you need variances.
Yes.
Fair enough, John. Good idea.
Okay. I just wanted, for my own mind,
No,
because
I thought it was, he had to put it back in the same footprint.
he would, but since he's not, he's applying for the permit.
Okay, so he's gonna tear this down and start all over again.
Yes, and he's actually making it better than the existing, but it's still non-conforming.
Yep.
And I just didn't know, but us issuing a permit is not going to alleviate any requirement of variance relief. And when he goes for his building permit, you'll find out that. Okay,
That's right.
okay, then I'm good.
All right. Yes?
Mr. Harden, do you have a letter from your immediate neighbors, Whitney Rohr and Sean Merritt? Were they in favor? Did you receive that?
They're actually here tonight.
Oh, good. Sam, could we hear from the abutters? Are we ready for that?
Well,
By all means, go ahead. I can't see him, so go ahead.
Hi. Sean Merritt, 25 Grove Street. We are actually in favor of Kevin's request due to the fact that we were in such close proximity to him during the fire. We almost lost we could have lost our house, but thanks to the fire department, we didn't. So on the corner that's facing, I think it's the corner of the yard.
That little.
So west
Where
is
it's
this
closer.
way.
Yeah, the back corner that it would be closer, we're okay, we're fine with that. If that's,
Good.
just to move it away from our house, we're happy with that.
Good.
And I think you said like it would be 26 feet. That's, the distance there, that's great. So we just want to.
And here's one of the pictures, the space between the two structures is barely walkable.
Yeah.
So to be able to move that down gives fire apparatus access, police, emergency personnel in that area.
We could hear the cracking of the fire when the house is on fire. So
And here's another picture of the two
Yeah.
face on, how close they are.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And there was a letter from the other abutter. She wasn't going to be able to be here. Which is Kimberly Boudreau's letter.
Yeah, we
Oh, yeah, we got that.
Yeah, so she is the abutter on the east side.
Yeah.
Sean is the abutter on the west side, as well as behind the structure.
Good. Okay. Any public input?
Hi, I live on Grove Street.
Yes, ma'am?
Hi, I live at 21 Grove,
Yes?
and I think it's a great plan, what they're doing. Moving it away from Sean and Whitney's house and, centering it more on the lot. So I'm totally in agreement with it.
Very good, thank you. Any others?
I live on Elm Street, and I think it would be very beneficial to have that lower, and it'll make the neighborhood look nicer.
Okay. That being said,
So Sam, just for good measure, I think we should go through the 6 criteria for a special permit.
okay, go. I don't have a copy in front of me, so go ahead.
I got it, so I'll just read them off. Social, economic, or community needs which are served by the proposal. I think social would be cleaning up essentially a blighted lot. Economic, probably increase the tax base. And community needs more housing, in my opinion. Number 2, traffic flow and safety. In this case, he's going from a 3-family to a 2, so I think you could argue that both will decrease.
Yes?
3, adequacy of utilities and other public services, same as above.
Yep.
Neighborhood character and social structures. This family was an existing multifamily use. To reduce a unit probably isn't a bad thing. Impacts on the natural environment. You're going to have new building materials, so there may have been building materials like some of the older homes in that area have asbestos siding. I don't know if Mr. Harden's does, but I can't see a negative impact on the natural environment. And potential fiscal impact, including impact on town services, tax base, and employment. Again, the tax base, it's a new building, so you'd imagine the assessed value will be higher. Town services, it's one fewer unit. So you could argue that there are fewer services that would be needed. And employment, folks will have to build it.
It's not gonna build itself.
That's all. If you'd like a motion, I'd be happy to make one.
Go right ahead.
All right. I make a motion to grant a special permit pursuant to
Section 7.6.c,
B.
reconstruction after catastrophe.
to 27 Grove Street, filed by Kevin Harden.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. State your name.
Jessica Gino, aye.
Michael Gibbons, aye.
John Ellis, oh, sorry, go ahead. John Ellis, aye.
Ron DeFilippo, aye.
Sam Goodwin, aye. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody.
Yeah, sorry.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Make a motion, we close the public hearing on 27 Grove Street.
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Jessica Gino, aye.
Michael Gibbons, aye.
Ron DeFilippo, aye.
John Ellis, aye.
Sam Goodwin, aye. All right, next item on the agenda.
Thank you for your time.
I will
Thank you, Mr.
send
Hardy.
a decision in a letter early next week, and I'll explain next steps, okay?
Thanks so much. Appreciate it.
All right, next item on the agenda, public hearing notice. Ayer DBA will be conducting a hybrid public hearing at 7:25 p.m. on Wednesday, April 17th, 2024, at Ayer Town Hall, 1 Main Street, regarding application submitted by Jane Reedy for the property located at 1 Harvard Road, Ayer, Mass. Applicant is seeking a special permit pursuant to Ayer zoning bylaw, section 5.3.2.c, accessory apartment, to allow for the conversion of existing carriage house, into a dwelling unit. For Zoom or call-in information, please contact zba@ayer.ma.us or 978-772-8220, extension 114. Jane Reed, are you here? Yes, you
I
are.
am here, in the hot seat. Everybody else warmed it up. So I am proposing to convert our carriage house, which is a nice spot for storing all my family and neighbors and friends' stuff, into a dwelling unit to make it more usable. It's not going to change the footprint at all on the exterior, except add a second door out of it. I propose that I will have a finished first floor storage on the second floor. The basement has been reinforced and slab poured in the basement. There's town sewer, town water already present in it. And so I would like your approval to proceed. And other,
living there now?
Pardon?
Is someone living there now?
A couple of mice. No, the other thing I noticed, the comments from, as this got passed around to everybody, the police or the firemen had a question about the address, which Charlie, when I get the building permit, Charlie will assign an address. I'm guessing it'll be something creative like 1A or 3. But at any rate, that's not something I can address. The the fire department also had a question about parking, and I have a couple of pictures before of an empty driveway and Sunday morning breakfast at my house. So we got a bunch of cars in there. So I brought 3 separate copies if anybody's interested in seeing I've got plenty of parking.
So your drawing shows that existing barn, is that your carriage house?
Yes.
Okay.
And it's pictured in the paperwork I sent over too. Yes, it's a beautiful structure in terms of size, and it just looks rather nice. And now that I got the basement fixed up, it looks even nicer. Those are very elemental plans.
No, I was gonna say, you're not doing anything on the second floor?
That will be storage.
Okay. No bedroom, though?
No. Well, I'm making the first floor accessible. My husband and I have been joking that when our children throw us out of our existing house, which is attached, or is right there on the same property, that we'll move out to the barn. Because we have 3 kids, all of whom want our house.
It's a beautiful house.
It is and it isn't.
Yeah, well,
So the only thing we're considering is the square footage, right?
I think all you're considering is blessing it.
use.
Sorry?
Yeah.
Change in use, isn't it?
Yeah, it's accessory.
It's a change in use, yeah. I mean, this is not my territory.
Well, it said the owner's looking to finish 912 square feet where 815 is allowed.
No, we've changed that.
Oh, okay, well, that's,
We lost 100 feet.
oh, okay, I didn't know.
Yeah, what we did was change it has a very tall second floor. And so we're going to bring in walls, improve.
Okay, that's fine. It's just, that's
Yeah.
what I had was going on.
Yeah, we're going to play nice.
And so, just going over the memo from Charlie, because this rule has all these conditions.
Yes.
And one is, you're the owner and you live there, right? And you're going to maintain ownership of that with no condo association or any of that. You're just going to own that outright. Yeah. The only other thing is, I guess, is there some sort of verification process every year about you still being the owner, and if you sell the
I've
property.
not seen, have you seen that before? I've not seen that.
It's in the package. It's a letter from Charlie.
Yep.
No, I saw that, but I've never seen anybody have to do an annual verification.
This is the first ADU you guys have seen. This is the first one that
Ah.
qualifies.
Okay.
That would explain it.
Yeah.
You're the first.
Okay.
So this, they have to confirm every year that it's all that. How is that monitored and who monitors it?
That is a good question.
I would assume
Building
Charlie.
department, I would
Yeah, it would be Charlie, so,
Okay.
yeah.
think. Okay.
I fully intend to be here in another year, so I'll do it.
And, I mean, we would label the,
Hopefully get it
we would
done
label
by
those
next
files
year.
of what it
Well,
is too.
I guess the thing is that we confirm that so we don't have to put any conditions on it because it's already agreed upon. And I just want to make sure that, everybody's on the same page. Because, like on 5 and 6, comply, but there was no comply on these, so I just wanted to confirm that it's all good and we don't have to put any conditions to meet those.
Yep. No. Any questions from the board?
You answered them all.
Any in the public? Great. Okay.
So Sam, just for good measure again, special permit.
3 for 3, Mike.
What I am going to do is go through the 6 criteria again.
All right.
And if anybody thinks that this application doesn't serve one of these or is a detriment, just let me know. Social, economic, or community needs which are served by the proposal.
Additional housing.
Additional housing, I think, is a great point. Traffic flow and safety, including parking and loading. While it would be an additional unit, that's already a pretty heavily trafficked road. I take it a few times a day, and I don't think it would be an undue burden. Adequacy of utilities and other public services, as far as I know.
They're already.
Yeah.
It's already there, yep.
Neighborhood character and social structures. There are, a number of multifamily homes within, I would say, 400
Right
feet.
next door is a two-family. There's a rental apartment attached to the house.
Yeah. So not uncommon in that part of town. Impacts on the natural environment. The building's existing, so they're not expanding the footprint outside of it. Looks like that little egress, but I don't see any negative
We'll be
impacts.
having a HERS It's going to be a HERS certified building.
Perfect. So even better, it's sustainable. And potential fiscal impact, including impact on town services, tax base, and employment. Town services, it would be an additional unit, but the tax base will increase. Employment.
Not enough for kids, though, for school.
I was just going to say that. Having looked at the plans, I don't see a family of 5 moving in there, so I don't think we'd have additional costs from school perspective. So I don't find anything to be
Especially since I'm
out of order.
the house right there.
Right.
I agree.
I'll make a motion if you'd like.
By all means, sir, make it
Alrighty.
make it an even number.
I make a motion to approve an application for special permit to Jane Reed at 1 Harvard Road. Sorry again. Let's see. Pursuant to Ayer zoning bylaw, section 5.3.2.c, accessory apartment, to allow for the conversion of existing carriage house into a dwelling unit.
Second. Oh.
All those in favor, signify by saying aye. State your name, please.
Jessica Gino, aye.
Michael Gibbons, aye.
Ron DeFilippo, aye. John Ellis, aye.
Damn good one, aye. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Reed.
Thanks for your time.
I make a motion to close the public hearing for special permit for Jane Reed.
Second.
All in favor, signify by saying aye. State your name.
Jessica Gino, aye.
Michael Gibbons, aye.
Ron DeFilippo, aye.
John Ellis, aye.
Damn good one, aye. Okey dokey. What do we have now?
Minutes.
Minutes of the meeting, February 21. Anybody see any problem with them?
No problem.
Nope.
Nope.
Yes.
I make a motion to accept the minutes of the meeting for February 21st as published.
Second.
Jessica
All those in
Gino.
favor, signify by saying aye.
Jessica Gino, aye.
Michael Gibbons, aye.
Ron DeFilippo, aye.
Pick up, John.
John Ellis, aye.
Yeah, good one, aye. All right. Board discussion. Next item on the agenda, board discussion. Upcoming meetings and topic of discussion.
I have a question.
What?
42 Park Street. We did a permit on 42 Park Street to put in a business in the salon next to, across from the laundromat on Park Street.
Yeah, they're building over there. Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, well, we issued a permit and they were gonna retain the existing structure and remodel the inside. The building is gone.
It was written as they would retain the structure if possible. Unfortunately, they ran into some serious rot and damage, and Charlie went out and determined it was not safe.
So what happens now, because the thing was only 3 foot from the road, are they gonna?
They're gonna build on the foundation. So they're just
They
rebuild.
kept the foundation.
It looks like a new
As far as I know,
foundation.
but maybe not.
Okay,
It was determined.
sure.
It wasn't, the structure was not
No, it
salvageable.
looked awful,
Yeah.
but
And
still.
everything that they have, everything they saw through the ZBA and the planning board, and even the building permit says will retain if possible.
Okay,
Everyone
so-
knew there was a chance.
Okay, so that tells me that they're maintaining the original foundation for the front of the house, but all the back was an addition anyway, and that's the new foundation I'm looking at.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, and Charlie will know more as things go.
Okay, I was just curious.
Yeah.
All right. Are they, do we have anything on the next meeting?
At this time, I have no applications, but they have until the 23rd of April. So next Tuesday is the deadline for the May meeting. And then possibly somewhere in that time frame, if I do get applications, we may want to discuss. So technically, we don't have a June meeting. It falls on a holiday.
Oh, that's right.
Juneteenth.
What holiday?
Juneteenth? So June 19th, Juneteenth. So June 19th is a holiday. We won't be open, we can't hold a meeting.
Yeah.
So we don't need to reschedule the meeting to another night for that month?
I was gonna say we may have to, or we may wanna consider depending on what applications I get. So I will keep you posted through May. If I get any applications, we can discuss from there.
And we might not have a May meeting if you don't get any applications.
Yeah, they're
so we
set.
could juggle around with that.
Yeah.
Okay, I was just
Yeah.
curious.
I'm good with that, yeah.
But just
absolutely.
as a heads up, I don't quite know what's,
Okay, fair enough.
but I don't know anyone who's coming up either.
All right. Anything else we wanted to talk about?
I got nothing.
Blank faces?
Blank faces? That's a wrap then, guys. It's been a really good meeting. Thank you for all your input. Michael, thank you very much.
Absolutely, sir.
Motion to adjourn.
I mean, second that. All those in favor say bye.
Bye.
Mike Gibbons, bye.
Bye.